Hi, my name is Kathy, and I'm a librarian at the Plainfield branch of Kent District Libraries. Welcome to our streaming programs. Tonight, I'm excited to introduce Mandy Thompson, who, for the third week in a row, is teaching us how to make something yummy at home. Tonight's recipe will be papusas, and the previous 2 weeks, Mandy made pesto and gnocchi. Without further ado, I'm going to add Mandy.
Hello, KDL friends. I'm Mandy Thompson, and today I'm going to show you how I make papusa with Curtito. As you can see, I'm in my home kitchen. So we have one angle shot, and we'll do the best we can with my counter space. Also, if you haven't seen my other videos, I have a camera here, but my screen is here. So I may look back and forth every now and then. Just bear with me as I get through this learning to film from home process. So yes, like I said, we're making papusa today. Papusa is a corn cake that is filled with different fillings. I'll get to that a little bit later. And it comes from El Salvador, so it's kind of their national dish. And different countries have kind of different versions of this, but we're going to make the El Salvador version, papusa, today. This starts with corn flour or masa. Okay, this is one of the many brands. Oh, camera's over here. One of the many brands that you can buy, pretty readily available. The dough has to sit for a few minutes, about 5-10 minutes before it's really ready to start working with. So I'm going to get the dough done and set it aside so it can rest while we work on other things. The dough starts with about 4 cups of the masa or the corn flour. This doesn't have to be super duper accurate like we're baking something. We don't have to level it off. That's what the corn flour looks like, literally like flour, but it's made from ground corn instead of wheat. So like I said, this is my home kitchen. You might see a cat or 2 or 3 or 4, we have 4, walk by. You might hear a door open, a husband, the children, they're all here. Okay, there's my 4 cups of masa. Set that aside. Okay, we want to flavor it with a little bit of salt. I'm going to use a full teaspoon in this amount today because I would use a little bit less if I were using meat, but today we're going to stuff these with beans and cheese. But if I was stuffing it with meat, the meat would be seasoned, so we wouldn't need quite as much in our flour mixture. So just give that a little mix. We're going to be using our hands a lot today, so we're going to get messy and have fun, but also have clean hands. And to this, we're going to add warm water. So that was 4 cups of masa. It's going to take anywhere from 3.5 to 4, maybe even a little bit more of the warm water. Once we get in there and start mixing it we'll start with 3 and add a little bit more at a time. We'll have a feel of whether or not we need more. It's very environmental, depending on how much humidity is already in your masa or in the air, just like if we were making bread. Sometimes it varies in the amount of water. So here's our 2. And I do prefer using my hand to mix this. It mixes up a little bit better. You can squish it around and just get a feel for the dough a little bit more than if you were mixing it with a spoon. Okay, so that was our 2 and about 3 cups. So hand right in there, just mix it on up. We're looking for the consistency of something like very soft Play-Doh. I would say if you've ever made homemade Play-Doh, that's kind of what we're looking for. It's a little bit softer than store-bought Play-Doh, even fresh store-bought Play-Doh. And just giving it a mix and a squish. So mixing and squishing. You don't have to worry about overworking this too much. We could get to that point, but we're not going to mix it that much. All right, this is still pretty crumbly, so I'm going to add a little more water. Did I say the water needed to be warm? The water's warm. It's going to work a lot better for you to absorb that masa. Squish, squish, squish. Okay. I think we might be there. Let's see. So we're going to be rolling these into balls and then squishing them into pancakes and filling them. So you want a consistency that isn't too sticky, but also something that's not going to crumble apart. So in testing it, kind of mushed it, and I could see that it's actually starting to crumble. So it does need a little bit more water. This is a fun one for kids to help out with. What kid doesn't love? Well, there are kids that don't love it, but I know my kids love to smoosh things. Okay, I think that might be it. Let's see. Like I said, this is also going to rest. So once it rests, it's going to absorb a little bit more too. Okay, now, probably help if I held it in front of the camera. So that was my ball. Now, when I smush it, there's a delay too on my screen. It doesn't crumple when I smush it. Okay, so I know this is good. So at this point, just pack it down a little bit. Clean off your hands a little bit. We're gonna cover this with a damp towel and we're gonna let it rest while we work on some other things. We'll wash up real quick. All right, I just took paper towel, got it wet, squeezed it out, and we'll set this to the side. All right. Now a condiment or a side that goes with the papusa is called Curtito. And it is basically like it's like a coleslaw slash sauerkraut. It's not creamy like a coleslaw, but it's also not quite fermented as much as a sauerkraut. It starts out with kind of a pickling liquid though. So that's what we're gonna do real quick. Starting with apple cider vinegar, but honestly, you could use white vinegar, you could use red vinegar, red wine or white wine vinegar. 3 tablespoons. I might not have enough. 1, 2, 3 tablespoons of that. 2 tablespoons of water. Okay. Add a little sweetness to take the bite out of the vinegar is honey. I feel like I'm giving away a really good secret here, but this is my favorite honey. Aberdeen apiary honey. It's local in Grand Rapids on the northeast side. Please don't go buy it all because I want to be able to get some too. 2 teaspoons of that. Okay. And you need some salt. When fermenting and pickling, salt matters. I've said that before, that salt matters in certain dishes. When pickling or fermenting, you want to make sure that you use a salt, not a table salt. You want something like a kosher salt or a pickling salt, something that does not have the iodine added to it. I honestly don't know the science behind it. I just know that that's kind of a rule when it comes to it. So I don't know. You can investigate if you want to know the science behind it. So half a teaspoon of salt should do. And then you could leave it like this, or you could make it a little more fancy. I like oregano, which would be a traditional addition. Okay, just a little pinch will do. And I like it spicy, so I like to add red pepper flake. You can adjust that to your liking. I'm just going to do a pinch of that as well. And then we're going to get that going on the stove. We have to bring it just to the boiling point so that everything melts, the salt dissolves, the honey melts, and it mixes all together while we prepare our vegetables that we're going to be pouring this over. So I'm going to chuck it on the stove real quick. Okay. And then we'll get our pickling or our veggies ready. So the Curtito is going to have, the things that it has to have are cabbage and carrots. You can cut up the cabbage and carrots if you want to. You can shred them. I just buy the already, pre-shredded coleslaw mix. Altogether, you want about 3 to 4 cups of vegetables. So depending on exactly what you put in yours, this is about a half a bag of the coleslaw mixture. Okay. And then, so that would be your basics. I like to add radish and red onion, and those would be just to your liking. Another thing that some people add are slices of fresh jalapenos if you want it really spicy. So I like to use red onion because we like the bite of it, and I personally really like pickled red onions. They're very good. Okay, so this was a whole red onion. I just sliced it from top to bottom through. Okay, I used the other half earlier, laid it on its side. I took the stem end, like this is like if it was growing in the ground, I took the stem end off and I left the hairy end on, which is the root. Okay, that just kind of keeps it stable while we do our cutting. I'm going to give the pickling liquid a little swish. Okay, it's almost there. All right, so our red onion, we all really like red onion in my family, so I'm going to use this whole half of the small red onion. But again, this is totally up to you. You can omit it. You can use all of it. You can use some of it. But it's going to be real thin slices. So this kind of pickled slaw that we're doing, Curtito, it's going to slide off on me. Slippery onions. I can hear my pickling liquid, so I'm going to turn it off. You don't want it to boil off. You just want it to come to a boil so that everything dissolves. Anyways, what's I saying about the onion? Oh, no. I know. Losing my train of thought here. Not on my A game. So this slaw, you can eat it right away. Oh, excuse me. Ooh, we might have to edit that out. My phone told me it was low. You can eat it right away, or you could let it sit in the fridge for a couple of hours. You could let it sit in the fridge for a couple of days. I personally prefer the couple of days option because I like fermented foods, and it gets a little bit funkier and more fermented the longer that it stays in the refrigerator, but you can make that decision yourself. All right, now we're going to add some radishes. I love radishes because they have this wonderful texture. Sometimes they have that spiciness. I find that radishes that are more in season are spicier. They're not in season right now, so they're not quite as spicy. But I'm probably going to throw in, oh, real quick, I always buy my radishes in a bunch like this. They're cheaper this way. They're fresher this way. You could totally buy them in the bag already sliced or pre-shredded. That's up to you, whatever. This is just my personal preference. However, when I do buy radishes, or even carrots or anything that still has the stem on them, it's best to process them or at least take the leaves off them right away. The longer these leaves stay on them, the softer the fruit will get. So I did buy these last night, but I wanted to show for demonstration purposes the whole bunch of radishes. But normally what I would do is just cut off all the greens and then just keep the little tuber bulb separate. Yeah, so we're gonna do, we'll probably do 3 that are this size. Like I said, we're looking for a total of about 3 or 4 cups of veggies. Gonna give these a quick rinse. Here's my makeshift extension to my counter there, my little cutting board, giving me some more space. All right, so then just nip off both ends. Can you see? Yeah, you can see. There we go. Okay. Then, because these are roly-poly, we don't want to cut ourselves. We need to give ourselves a flat surface. So we're just going to cut them in half. Okay. And then we will lie that down flat, and then they're not rolling around to where we could cut ourselves. And then just get them as thin as you can. When it gets to the point where you're too close to your fingers, lay that part down and then continue your thin slice. I like to keep a little bit of fingernails, so I can't really properly hold my knife quite like a professional chef, but I adapt. Okay, one more just to show you. Cut it in half. Yeah, you can see. Now you have your flat sides down, stable surface, and slice. There we go. All right, just to speed things up, I'm not going to slice this last one up. We'll just add this right to our bowl. And you, like I said, you could have stopped at the just the cabbage if you wanted to, cabbage and carrots. Okay, so we have that, giving it a little mix, a little zhuzh. Then we'll grab our pickling liquid. Give that a swirl. Just make sure everything's mixed up and give it a pour. Very good. And a good mix. Incorporate it. Everything covered in that liquid. All right. And this is the point where you would move it to something to be stored. I like to store it in glass jars, but I don't like to use the metal lids because the vinegar can start to break that down and make it a little funky. So I just get these plastic lids, okay? And because we have clean hands, we're just gonna take it and start packing it in. Okay, you get the gist of it. Okay, and then the lid on. If you're just going to let it sit while you're preparing the rest of your stuff, or if you're going to let it sit just for a couple of hours, you can leave it on the counter. If it's going to be a couple of days, I would put it in the fridge because we're not properly fermenting this. So for safety reasons, just put it in the fridge. Just make sure you give it a shake throughout the day. Okay, because all of the liquids are going to start to come down. The vinegar and the salt is going to pull liquid from their veggies as well, which is going to give it like a little bit of a dressing, if you will. So every now and then you just want to give it a shake. And you saw, I still have some in here. So this is what it looks like. Okay, it just looks like coleslaw. I made some this morning and I let it sit on the counter because it was just for a couple of hours. I didn't say morning, it was this afternoon. But you can see, first of all, you can just see through here how it's broken down a little bit, but you can see the difference. It's much more wet, softer, and it's more like almost like a sauerkraut, and that's what we're getting at. My personal opinion, a couple of days in the refrigerator is the best. It starts to get a little funky like sauerkraut. I'm going to move all of this out of the way. Bear with me. Small spaces to work with. Cool. All right. Next up, while our dough is still over here resting a little bit, we're going to talk about the filling. So there are many different fillings that you could choose. Today, I'm going to be doing refried beans and cheese. Another option would be shredded meat of some sort, pork, beef, chicken. You would cook it and season it and then shred it up. And then it could be mixed with cheese, or you could omit the cheese altogether. But today we are cooking vegetarian, so we're just going to use my favorite refried beans is this brand here. And I buy the vegetarian because that's how we're cooking today. And shredded cheese. Monterey Jack is my cheese of choice for this. It melts really, really well, and it has a very good flavor, not just a mouthfeel, but a good flavor as well. Real quick on cheese. For myself, it's important to buy blocks of cheese and shred them myself. Part of the reason is because pre-shredded stuff does have additives to it for anti-caking and anti-molding. Are they bad for you? Probably not in the long run, but you know, the less added stuff, the better, in my opinion. However, those pre-shredded things are really great for convenience. They're great if you have a hard time shredding things, or if you don't have good muscle tone, or your hands don't work quite as well, or you just don't have time. Totally fine. But if you have the time and if you have the ability, try shredding your cheese. Another reason why I like to shred my own cheese is I make a lot of my own cheese sauces or macaroni and cheese, that type of thing. And the additives that they put in those pre-shredded cheeses change the texture and the way that it melts. So if you're noticing like a gritty texture or a really weird pull apart stringy texture in your cheese sauces, it's probably, and if you're using the pre-shredded stuff, it's that anti-caking agent. So if you are able to just shred it yourself, you're going to have a better product. If you are vegan or you can't tolerate dairy, you can totally omit the cheese part. Or you can, I did a vegan retreat where I cooked for people, and I made these, and I made them with nutritional yeast in the beans, so it still had that little bit of a cheese flavor. So here's another part where your hands get to get messy. This was about 2 cups of cheese, so like 1 brick of like an 8-ounce brick will be about 2 cups of cheese, and then 1 can of beans. And I'm going to get my hands in there and mash it all together. This whole dish is about using your hands. Even when we make the papusa, it's all with your hands. All right. Doing a good mix. Trying to kind of smash the cheese up. We're not just mixing it in, but we're really trying to smash it all together to make it one glob. Oh yeah. Nice and messy. Okay. All right. That's our filling. There we go. Okay, now we're going to work on the dough. Let's go back to it. I'm going to give it another feel. It had some time to rest to make sure it didn't dry out. Still feels really nice. Cool. So this recipe makes 16 papusas. So ideally what you would want to do is divide your dough up into 16 even pieces. I'm not going to sit here and make you go through all of that, but I'll do a few. You just divvy it up right in the bowl with your hand. It doesn't have to be totally perfect, but okay, so it's for about 8. And then each of these we'll pull in half to make 16. Okay. To make your balls, set them aside. You want to try to keep these covered as well if you are not working super duper fast, just because you don't want them to dry out. I have had them dry out before while working with them, and it's not a big deal. I actually just kind of dunk the whole thing in some water and just reincorporate the water back into it. Comes back to life just fine. Okay, we'll just do that now. And because we're making so many, I like to make them all and then start cooking them instead of cooking and making at the same time. I just find it's easier just to do it all in batches. Oh, I can't get this open. Got it. Okay. Canola oil or vegetable oil. Just drizzle it on your pan. This is just where we're going to be transferring and stacking up the pupusas as we make them. Perfect. All right, so we have our ball. We know it's nice and soft. So you're going to smash it out a little bit. Kind of make a cup or a bowl. Okay. You don't want to make it so thin that it's going to bust through the other side. What about like this? And then I like to take a little scooper. You can just use a spoon if you want to. And we're going to do, you want about 2 tablespoons worth of filling. Okay, about like that. Then do this slowly and gently. Gently. Slowly pull up the sides. We're trying to close this hole without breaking it apart. And it might get to the point where it won't totally close at the top, and we might, well, we'll push it down in there. There, I bet we can get it. Okay, cover up the hole. Make sure there's no big cracks anywhere. Okay, now is the fun part. Now we're gonna smack these between our 2 hands until we form like a pancake, just like this. You start to see the filling, it's okay. I'll show you how you can plug it up, but it's also okay if it's open a little bit. All right, that's a bit too much. Okay, so we'll try to just push this around. We might have to borrow some of our masa dough, cover it up. Okay, little cracks are fine. Honestly, I prefer the little cracks personally because I like when cheese gets all brown and crunchy. That's what'll happen. Okay, so this is one. Let's see about how big that is. And we'll just set it in the oil, just like that. We'll start another one. Remember how I told you to keep these covered and then I didn't cover mine? All right. Roll it out. push it down. You want to go soft and gentle. If you go too fast, you're just going to break it apart. Okay, so we got our little disc. Okay, and then in a slow circle, we're going to just push in the middle and kind of make a little bowl. So it's thinner here and thicker on the sides because these sides are what we're going to use to pull up and close it. Okay. About 2 tablespoons of your filling. This whole time I've been preparing these, I've had an electric skillet over here off screen warming up. I like to use an electric skillet because I can fit more on there at one time. Okay, so now we've got our cup full, our bowl full. And turning, you see how my fingers are doing this, turning it in a circle at the same time as they're pushing up. Okay, nice and gentle so that we don't make a big hole or make a big crack. And ideally, you want the dough to be the same thickness around the entire papusa. Okay. Cool. Check for big cracks. Doesn't look like any. If your dough is too sticky, it's fine. You can just put a little bit of oil in your hand. If it's too dry, you can put some water in your hand. Okay, so now we're going to slap it back and forth. And I'll show you what I do if the dough gets too dry. Okay, there's a little hole at the top. We're going to borrow some of this other masa dough and cover it up. No biggie. Okay. Here we go. There's our second one. In the oil. Okay. I'm going to grab a bowl of water. Make it warm. And let's say I've been practicing and my dough started to dry out some. You could take the whole ball of dough, just run it around in the water a bit, and then just knead that water in. So it's just a little bit. It's not, we're not making it real gluey or not too soft, just enough, just to incorporate a little bit more moisture into it. Roll it into your ball. Okay, flatten it out into a thick pancake or a cookie, looks like a sugar cookie. And then start pushing the center and making your little well for your filling. And the sides and the top is thicker. Okay, like that, fits perfect in the palm of my hand. About 2 tablespoons. And then we're going to pull up the sides as we spin it in a circle. The more practice you get at this, the faster it'll go. Okay. Smoking it between the 2 hands to form your pancake. Cool. All right, and in the oil. Okay. I think that was enough demonstration. One more? I'll do one more. Okay. I'm going to give it a quick dunk. That's just because it started to dry out just a tiny bit. I noticed that second one that I made, it cracked a little bit more. That's just because it wasn't quite enough moisture. Okay. Roll it back into a ball. This is just ensuring that there aren't any pockets anywhere in there that are going to help it break open. We don't want it to break open. So if you roll it in a ball, kind of like you do like with a meatball, it closes all those gaps for you. Okay, smush it down a bit. Create your little bowl for your filling, which again, your filling could be beans and cheese like we have here. It could be just beans. You could do black beans. You could do shredded chicken, pork, beef. Okay. And then your hands will work together to go around and around, pulling it up. Sometimes there's a little too much filling. You can just wipe it out. And then close that. Close her up. Okay. And then you smack it between two hands. Again, if your dough was too sticky, you could put a little bit of oil on your hands. Keep it from sticking. I love a good forgiving recipe. Okay. Do what I need to do to make it work. All right, there we go. Okay, let me clear this out of the way. I'm going to bring out my electric skillet now. Hopefully not burn myself. Excuse me. Okay, here we go. All right, nonstick skillet. You could totally do this on the stove, on a pan. You could fry them up that way, absolutely. But this way, I know that I can get 6 to 8 of them on one go round. It just makes for faster cooking. Drizzle a tiny bit of oil over the top of each one. I personally don't like them super duper oily and fried. They really don't need it. Just enough oil to coat. And then just put them on the pan. I might do a couple more while these are cooking because I want to flip it and let you see what it looks like. It'll probably take 6 to 8 minutes total, depending on how hot this is. I set it at 350, almost as hot as it can go, but I want that cheese on the inside to melt as well. I don't want to just cook the outside. Cheese needs to get melted too. Let's do a couple more just while that's going. So I don't just sit here and stare at you while they're cooking. All right, I dipped it again because it did start to dry out a little bit. Rolling it in my ball, get any of the air pockets out. Okay, and then smush it down. Take your 2 thumbs, and push gently as you work in a circle to flatten out the center a little bit, creating a bowl and bringing up the sides that are thicker than the middle. Okay. Cool. Here's your filling. Might be a little bit too much filling, this one, to be honest. Okay. So then we use our fingers to slowly push up. You see how my thumbs are pushing it up like this as I'm spinning it in a circle to help it close up. Yeah, that's too much in that one. Okay. Closing it up. And then we start slapping it between 2 hands. I got a big crack on that side. Just use your fingers, dip it in the water to help you manipulate it some. All right. You could make these a little bigger, a little bit smaller if you wanted to. This is a good size. Depending on what else I'm serving with it, 1 or 2 would be a portion. We like to eat this with the Curtito. We really like, I'll do the raw radishes. We like to sprinkle just salt on raw radishes. Usually have some salsa with it, avocado. This is getting stuck now. Okay. See, I didn't add more water to this one, so it's getting crumbly. It was the bowl that was sitting out there not covered up, like I told you to cover it up. To remember all my own rules as I'm teaching you, right? Okay, I'm gonna add a little more to the top of this one. Okay. We'll fix all those cracks after we get it flattened. Okay. So this will happen. Not a big deal. We can fix it. Super easy recipe because it's very forgiving. Look at that. Beautiful. Close that crack right up. All we had to do is use a little bit of water. They're also okay with the cracks too. Just depends on the aesthetic you're going for, right? All right, that one's all good. Let's give these a flip. So sometimes you can tell they're ready because it'll start to bubble in the center. You might see some of the cheese oozing out a tiny bit. Once you've cooked them a few times, you can tell by the smell. Toasted corn, you kind of just know what that smells like. These ones I'll probably flip again, to be honest, because the sides didn't quite get it. They're still pretty wet and soft on the sides. They're hot. They're getting there. All right, let's make some more. Oh, it's getting real dry over here now. Let's use this to cover it up, huh? Okay, so the dough dried out. I'm gonna dunk it in the water. Yep, you can see the bowl. And I'm gonna knead that water into my dough that got too dry. Just like that. Cool. Now it feels like that soft Play-Doh again. Give it a roll. This is gonna be a tiny guy because I didn't take the time to portion out all my dough like I normally would. Speeding through it for you. Okay, flatten it out a little bit. Turn and push the center to make your well. This one's smaller, so I'm just going to do a heaping tablespoon this time instead of 2 tablespoons like I did with the other sizes. Okay, and again, pushing up your sides. Your thumbs and your fingers as you spin it around to close up the hole. Beautiful. And then slap it between your hands. This one would have benefited from my hands being oiled. It's a little bit sticky. That's all right. Okay, so that's a little guy. That's for somebody that just wants to try it. They're not quite sure. This is the try it before you buy it size. All right. So we made our dough first. We let it set for 10 minutes. Then we made our curtito, which is the slaw that I would recommend making at least a couple hours ahead of time, if not a couple of days ahead of time, like I like it. And I'll show you how I plate everything up while those are finishing. This is my Curtito that I made a couple of hours ago, so it's having time to break down a little bit, get a little bit funky. Wish I could bring the camera over and show you. This one, ooh, I don't know if you can see. Right there, some of the cheese started to ooze out. That one's going to be my favorite one because it's going to have delicious round crunchy cheese. Okay. Okay, cool. So plating it up. There it is. Here's that little bit of cheese. Yep, that one's the winner. Do you see it? Okay, so the dough, well, these could go a little bit longer. Let's look for a little more brown, but the dough is at least cooked. It's not smushing apart when I touch it with my finger. Really, just a couple of minutes per side, and it will depend on how thick you make them too. But we're just looking for, a little bit of brown. I would go browner than this. This is just for demonstration purposes, about like that. Okay. Then, because this is so thick and rich, you've got, a bread-like substance, the masa, corn flour, you've got beans or meat that you've put in there and cheese you put in there. So this little slaw, the Curtito, is just going to break that up a bit. It's going to give you that fresh bite, that little bit of zip. Okay, I want hot sauce on mine. We all have our favorites. This is one of ours. Real spicy. Okay. And that's that. Papusa from El Salvador with Curtito and hot sauce. And at dinner, I'll serve some avocado. You could do sour cream if you wanted, although I don't believe that's very traditional. And then some just fresh veggies. You could do some rice with it if you wanted, but this and veggies, that's our dinner. Let's see how these look on the other side now. Oh yeah, they're getting more color. Beautiful, perfect, wonderful. All right, well, that's it. I think I covered it all. That was a lot and a little bit of a video, so I'm sorry if I missed anything. I will definitely get the ingredient. I'll get the ingredient list to KDL, and I will post estimated measurements. However, listen to yourself, listen to your instincts as far as exact measurements, because they don't really exist when it comes to this. You just throw together what seems right and what you like. Okay, you can change that up. Thank you for watching. I do have one more video coming up. It's going to actually not air until March. We did have a snow day. So I was supposed to be every Thursday in February, but the old Mother Nature pushed us back 1 week. So I have one more video next week. And yeah, I think that's it. Thank you for watching. I appreciate it. Have a great night.
Wow. Now I'm starving. I love watching Cooking with Mandy. Next week, she'll be making risotto. Thanks for tuning in, and watch next week for her last show.